this computer. Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to another edition of 1+1, your place for inconvenient truth-telling and myth-busting. And this is our special Ontario local elections special. Back on the program is Ivan Stoiljkovic. Did I get that right, Ivan? Perfect. I got that right. And we're joined by a collective of people today. But I'm gonna let everyone introduce themselves. They're going to say what they're running for in this special Ontario local elections, and then I'll proceed to ask my questions on what's the big thing that everybody's running again, that everybody's running on, and yeah, we'll go from there. So actually, Ally, let's start with you first, since you're right next to Ivan, who I know, and then Jake, and then we'll go to Jacob, then we'll go to Sebastian, then we'll go to Ian, then we'll go to Keaton.
Hi, I'm Ally. I'm running in the Kingstown district. I've lived in the city of Kingston for 10 years. I'm a mom, so I have 2 children, and I'm a student at St. Lawrence College. I'm not really sure what else. That's a little bit about me. Okay,
Jacob, okay, yeah, let's go to you next.
How's it going? I'm Jacob Wynperle. I'm running for City Councillor of Meadowbrook-Strathcona, Ward 8. I'm new to Kingston. I only moved here when I became an undergraduate at Queen's. I'm in my 3rd year now.
Okay, followed by you, Sebastian.
Right on. My name is Sebastian Vaillancourt. Some people call me Sebas. I'm running for City Council in the Portsmouth district, Ward 5 here. I also came to Queen's when I started my undergrad about 6 years ago. I'm a young worker now, a full-time worker, part-time student. I work in the theater industry. I've worked for Queen's University as well as some local theaters around the area. And yeah, I guess that's it.
Ian.
Hi, yeah, my name is Ian Clark. I am running for City Councillor in the Williamsville district of Kingston. Lived in Kingston my whole life. Work primarily in the not-for-profit industry. Yeah, I guess that's me.
And Keaton?
Yeah, my name is Keaton. I've lived in Kingston essentially my whole life. I'm a local musician, and I also work at the safe injection site in our city.
Oh, very interesting. And we're definitely going to be talking about that, because that's related to the drug war and stuff like that. Something that I've spoken out, and guests on the show have spoken out. So that's very interesting. Okay, so then, so we have a packed panel. So I'll try to get to as many of you as possible. Ally, let's start with you. Now, I know all of you are part of a collective, are part of a tenants rights group. Talk about that, and is that actually what all of you guys are running on? The issue of the housing crisis, which is in Ontario. It's a problem across Canada. The problem of housing, tenants' rights, landlords who charge people way too much, and of course that leads to a lot of issues, from the homelessness crisis to everyone else. Ally, let's start with you, and then anybody can chime in if they want.
Yeah, so I'm a member of the Tenants Union, as we all are. And we do work to serve the people that are unhoused, people that do live in shitty apartments with shitty landlords. And that's the kind of stuff that we care about. Like, that's what motivated me to want to run. And I can say that, like, everybody else here is running on similar things. Yeah, that is what we're running on. I'm not really sure exactly what to say.
Who wants to chime in?
Yes, I don't know.
Who wants to chime in?
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that's kind of our main concern, all of us. I mean, I know for me personally, primarily my main sort of beat as an activist has been homelessness in the past 10 years or so. But I think I really was drawn to the group because I think, you know, homelessness, housing, tenant rights, all of it really, I think the crux at the sort of the center of all of these issues together really is the fact that the profit motive currently drives the housing market. I think that's the core from which all of the problems spill out. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from, I know.
Anyone else, Jacob or?
Well, yeah, I mean, Ali already said, but I mean, all of us ourselves are tenants, and that kind of sets us apart from the rest of the people running and the rest of the council right now. Like the council is made up of the mayor and 12 or 13 council members. And I mean, all of them but one currently is a home owner. Some of them are even landlords themselves owning multiple properties. So, I mean, like we're here to represent tenants and working people. And they're clearly not, we have a vested interest to help us and they have a vested interest to help, the few wealthy elites in Kingston.
And if I actually, let me just pull out my the internet very quickly. Okay, actually, I don't have the notes right in front of me, but the name of your but it's actually Sebastian. That's actually a good way for you to contribute. So, what now? The name of your organization? Can you say the name of your organization that you all represent, and what would be some of the policies you would like to advance if you all get elected to all of the to all the positions that you would like to that you're running for, and what would be just some of your solutions to the housing crisis and advancing tenants' rights?
Absolutely. So we're all members of an organization called the Katarokwi Union of Tenants. And so we kind of do a lot of different things with the tenants union. We've recently helped a tenant win a lawsuit against their landlord. We've also, a main kind of thing that we do is we help run we run a meal program that kind of takes somewhat different shapes. Mainly we go down to the integrated care hub, which is the safe injection site that Keaton mentioned earlier. And we'll try and pretty much every week, with very few exceptions, we're down there and we're holding a barbecue. And we've also had individuals cooking meals and bringing them there. So like, I think a big thing obviously is for us is ending homelessness. We want to make sure that each and every single person in the city has a home that is not just affordable to them and truly affordable, not this 80% of market rent that we hear a lot. Truly affordable being rent geared to income. And also we need to make sure it's safe, because that's another thing that we as a tenant union have been involved in is organizing tenants in buildings that are infested with cockroaches and bed bugs. That's been a big campaign of ours, because it's here in Kingston, not only is there just lots of houses that are just being bought up by these massive landlords and they're just kind of hoarding them, but the properties themselves are not safe to live in whatsoever.
Unbelievable. And Keaton, talk talk to us about the work you do and how one way to well, I don't know if this would actually end the problem of homelessness. Oh, actually, no, it probably would end the problem of homelessness. But can you talk about how if we ended the drug war and we treated drug addiction as a mental health issue and not so much a criminal matter, how that would solve the issue of people sleeping rough in the streets and whatnot?
Well, I don't think it will necessarily solve the issue of homelessness. I think they're two related issues, but they have separate solutions. I don't think necessarily every homeless person is a drug addict. Then obviously all drug addicts aren't homeless. So there's a contradiction there. But I think where drugs come into play with homelessness heavily is coping mechanisms. So I think with the decriminalization and really not just decriminalization, but destigmatization of drug use in the community is what needs to happen. At the safe injection site, one of the things we say is that, these people are just there, not that they're there, but people who use drugs and use harmful opiates, they're doing it so that they can have the same release that you or I have when we come home and we have a drink, or when you go to the bar, have your friends. It just happens to be more lethal. And I think there's a lot of apathy towards that because people view it as a choice. They don't look at the overall situation. I think, again, it's a bigger issue with a North American world mindset, is that, people are capable, people are able to handle themselves. And if you got somewhere in life, you kind of deserve to be there. So, it will be great to get people off of harmful drugs and get them out of situations where they feel they need to use things, but it's going to be a larger mindset shift from kind of damning people who aren't making the cut, as it were. Like, it's a harsh way to put it, but I think that's the way that our opponents would put it, you know what I mean? And that's another thing that I take issue with, and I feel the group takes issue with, is just like the dehumanization of people in general. Like, these are people with issues at the end of the day, and that's what's not being acknowledged. And you know, really our campaign, it's covering all these bases, but really like the mindset shift is behind it all. Like, that's the principle. Like, these are people with real problems, and they're not a problem or a burden. They're individuals that need help just like anybody else in the system needs help. So yeah, I think eliminating the use of opiates would be great, but I think that's what, you know, they've tried to do with, you know, the criminalization of meth and the you know, just the blacklisting of all those illicit drugs, right? I think that's what that attempt was, to get people to stop. But I think we're not going to really see a change until we go for the root cause of these issues. It's symptomatic. You know, drug use is symptomatic when it comes to homelessness, but we need to address the actual underlying things that are leading to people to feel this way and to do these things.
And Ian, how many young people? Because I'm very I'm pleasantly surprised how many of you are how many of you guys are students running for office, and so I'm curious how many young people are homeless because they can't afford because they either can't afford the cost of rents in some of these apartments, or they're from working class backgrounds in which their families simply can't, buy them, a home of their own. So I'm wondering, like, how many people? So how many young people are homeless, and how many of them are actually students, or even people that actually have a job right now, but simply whatever job, whether it's 2 jobs or 3 jobs, is simply not enough for them to have a roof over their heads.
I mean, it'd be hard to put an exact figure on it, but I think the answer is probably more than people think. I mean, when average market price rent, I've lost even track of the figure, but I think for a 2-bedroom, it's what, like $2,300 or something. Don't quote me on that. I could be making that up.
Okay, all right. It's just an estimate. Okay, but yeah.
It really is a situation where, yeah, I mean, you can be employed. You can have 2 or 3 jobs, and if those jobs are, say, paying minimum wage, yeah, you can be full-time employed and still either struggling to pay your rent or unable to pay your rent. I mean, the sort of conventional wisdom is that your rent should be about 30% of your take-home income. Used to be 20, so we've kind of already let it backslide a little bit as a society. But I mean, when you really crunch the numbers, I think people are spending 50, 60, 70% sometimes of their take-home income on rent. And it can be really easy for anybody, even somebody who's working full-time hours, to just not be able to keep pace with that.
And this is an open question. Anyone can chime in on this. There's a lot of talk during the when the pandemic broke out, and there were some form of lockdowns. Yeah, there was like a form of lockdowns, happening, and some people on the left, even some people on the right, Brian Mulroney was even saying this, that they were advocating something called a UBI, a universal basic income. Would introducing a UBI, but a very much a living wage UBI, would that be able to solve the issue of homelessness, or is that or even if that is a good idea, it's putting on a band-aid on something which needs much more systemic change? And anyone can chime in on that.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, who was Jake?
Yeah.
Jacob?
Okay. Jacob, followed by Ivan, and then I think,
Okay.
and then Sebastian and Ian.
Yeah, we're gonna need some order in here, eh?
Okay, so Jacob, you first, followed by Ivan, then Sebastian, then Ian.
Yeah, well, what I was going to say was, I mean, Ian was talking about the average price of a 2-bedroom. I mean, let's say it's even less than 2,300. You know, let's just say for the sake of argument, it's $2,000 a month. Is the universal basic income going to cover that? I mean, that's the fact of the matter. Are you going to be able to keep within that 30% of your monthly income and still be able to buy groceries and have money to take the bus or put gas in your car? And the fact of the matter is, no, you're not, because no one who's put forward this UBI has considered these things, or if they have considered them, they just don't care. So, I mean, you know, universal basic income could definitely help working class people in a way, but it is in no way a solution to the unhoused population or the precariously housed population. No, I think definitely we'll need more systemic change.
Okay, and Ivan, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. I wanted to speak to this. So, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So one of the things that we did that I wanted to say a little earlier was one of the things that we do as the Katarokwi Tenants Union of Tenants, is we are watching the municipal government and what they do, and we respond with policy proposals, and we organize other groups in town to sign on to these proposals, and we try to make them force the government to adopt them, right? So one of the early policy statements that we made was in regards to safe and free supply of opioids and other drugs, illicit drugs. So, you know, we have a history of advocating for services that are free, for free and safe drugs, because everybody that's on drugs right now, so this is in our platform, we're calling for this. So everyone that is on drugs, if those drugs were predictable and clean, they wouldn't be dying.
Yeah.
And if they were legal, if people didn't have to fight. So, you know, we're on record. This is in our platform. This is a long policy statement, you know, backed up with all kinds of facts. And I mean, even police boards are calling for decriminalization of drugs. So anyway, but the general statement, the point about this point here, about universal income, is that we are fighting for services. So if people have a roof over their head, if they have free food, which is another plank of our platform, if they have free transit, and if they have free drugs, then they don't really need money. If you give them money and none of these things, money can be gone very quickly, especially if they're addicted to illegal criminalized drugs, which are very expensive. So, you know, as Jacob said, if it's $5,000 per person a month indexed to inflation, cool. But still, if you're, you know, a cocaine addict, those who have doubled know that $5,000 is gone within a weekend. So, you know, it still wouldn't be enough. But again, it's how much, and the danger with most of the UBI models that have been advocated around Canada is that they tend to be an excuse to cut services. So, you know, if UBI means $1,000 a month and no services, hell no. If it means $5,000 and no services, hell no. If it means services and $5,000 a month for everybody, indexed to inflation, okay.
Interesting, yeah. In Britain, the big welfare reform was a universal credit, and many people said, "Oh, this is a great idea because it'll simplify the welfare system, and nobody has to go through all these weird, you know, hula hoops to get benefits for this and benefits for that." And on paper, it sounded like a good idea. Yeah, on paper, it sounded like a great idea, but now it's actually utter chaos because of the very thing you've just described. If a UBI is introduced, but we get rid of, you know, welfare as we know it. So I believe Sebastian, you want to chime in something, and then we'll have Ian and Keaton, if you want to also chime in, feel free.
Cool. So yeah, just to kind of echo what Jacob and Ivan have been saying, it's not that I think a UBI is a bad idea, but it does need to be accompanied by an increase of services to make sure that that money is money that is going into their pockets and just not immediately being sent off to their landlords. At that point, you might as well just be giving the money to the landlords directly. It's like I think you were the one who used the word, it's a band-aid, not a solution. But I will kind of touch on a question you asked earlier, directed to Ian, talking about like how many kind of youth specifically are on the streets. I had a bit of a documentary radio series on a local station here called Crisis Watch Kingston for a little while last year. And some of the research that I did through that, there's a document called the Point in Time Count. I believe it's a document done by United Way, which has some issues with it. But one thing that it does reveal through the statistics that it gathers is that there are two types of homelessness in Kingston that we have a disproportionate amount of, far more than a city of our size should. Obviously, there shouldn't be anyone living on the streets, but proportional to other cities, we have a lot more women on our streets, and we have a lot more queer youth. So that's something I just wanted to kind of talk about for a minute, because Kingston does have a bit of an issue with human trafficking. I believe there was a story in the news very recently about several dozen charges being laid against one individual related to human trafficking. So that definitely affects women living on the streets of Kingston. And another one is, like I said, queer youths. There are far more queer youth living on the street in Kingston than there are in other cities of our size. And it's a really alarming issue, and we need to make sure that especially more vulnerable populations like that are being housed and protected.
Wow. And Keaton, do you want to, yeah, actually, Ian, did you want to add anything more, and then Keaton?
Yeah, so this is probably going to be the last thing I have time to say before I actually have to go. But you know, on the subject of universal basic income, I think I kind of want to echo what everybody else has said about the need to make sure that that doesn't have sort of a singular set amount and then require everybody else to pay for services. I mean, if you know, if the universal basic income is set at the same amount for everybody, that's going to not be fair when you have, say, somebody, you know, completely able-bodied, completely, you know, no major health issues, and then you have somebody with, you know, high prescription costs and you know, let's use Ivan example, someone with a cocaine addiction. You know, maybe they have mobility issues and they need to spend a lot more money on aids, and those aids are not being provided. Then I think that definitely creates a bit of an issue. And beyond that, I also want to talk about when we talk about needing to index to inflation. I think Ivan touched on that briefly, and that's so very important, because we as a society have a lot of sort of numbers that have been set initially at what we thought would be sort of the necessity for survival. So if you look at something like the minimum wage, or rates for Ontario Works, or rates for Ontario, you know, ODSP, you know, these were all things that were set at one time as sort of this idea of like, this is enough to live on. And what we saw over the following years, and sometimes the following decades, was between them not keeping pace with inflation and some governments just flat out cutting them, it quickly ceased to be that. And so that's the one kind of, if it's not inherently indexed to inflation, that scares me is, you know, we've all lived through how many minimum wage fights, you know, where the government proposes raising it like a quarter, and all the businesses cry foul, and, you know, everybody's out of touch great uncle around the, you know, dinner table starts ranting about how no one wants to work anymore, and then finally they succeed in raising it by a quarter, and by the time they do that, inflation has kept up so that raising it by a quarter is actually just to bring it back to what it was when we first started saying we should raise it by a quarter, and so on and so on. And so there's part of me that's and then we're not even having those conversations with Ontario Works and ODSP rates, because just flat out, like, no government is proposing we raise them at all, even, well, occasionally barely like half of what inflation is. You know, so when we talk about a universal basic income, that is the one thing that kind of gets the hair on the back of my neck standing up, is this question of, are we gonna have that same argument, you know, every 3 or 4 years, like, hey, it turns out the universal basic income can't pay for rent anymore, we should probably raise it. And then, you know, 6 years later, they raise it by, you know, $40 a month.
Interesting. Very actually, thank you so much for saying that, because I never ever would have thought about that. So that's very good that you say that. You know, that you say that. Now, if you do have to go soon, where can people, if they want to join your campaign and find out about your campaign, where can they go? And also make sure to send me the link, so I'll put in the show notes on YouTube.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I can be found at the same place as all the other candidates, but I also have my website at vote-ian.ca. And I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Ian4Williamsville. That's the number 4. But yeah, I'll also pop that in the chat.
Perfect. And Ally, we haven't heard we haven't heard too much from you yet. Anything that you want to add about how housing needs to be a right? It is something much the left has completely overlooked because we either get too bogged down into, as Ian said, we either get too much bogged down into minimum wage fights, or we get into these big, wonderful, proposals about, UBI and stuff like that. So about the housing crisis, is there anything that that you want to add that everybody else has added? About how housing needs to be a right and is the ultimate civil rights issue of our time.
I'm not really sure what I can add to that. The housing is a human's right issue, and it's the civil rights issue of our time. I don't know, you just take, I don't know, your questions just have the answers right in them when you ask me, I guess. But everybody should have a home. Everybody should be housed. It's the way, I don't know. I know that you hear a lot of people being like, how are you going to pay for it? It's it's going to be expensive, blah, blah, blah. And it's stuff like this pays for itself, even if it costs a lot of money up front. At the end of the day, when you have everybody in a home, people want to buy things. People want to live a life that they enjoy. And to be able to do that, you have to work somewhere, people want to enjoy their life. So when you invest and you help them be able to do that, it pays for itself at the end of the day. So anybody that's even worried about how expensive it is, it's not. It's an investment in the entire city at the end of the day. So,
but what about competition? Come on, isn't competition a great thing though? Is it great to have so many? Is it great to have so many oligarchs negotiate come on, 2 million here or no 5 million there? Come on, what's wrong with competition?
Yeah, no, definitely not when it comes to housing. You can have competition, whatever you want, but not when it comes to impacting really important parts of people's lives. I don't know, my daughter's dad is homeless currently, so it's really tough. I see how it impacts her in school, and I see how it impacts her at home, and it's just it doesn't just impact the person on the street, it impacts their entire community, and it ripples from there. It impacts everyone. So yeah.
That is, that is unbelievable. And actually, Sebastian, can you and Ally, in fact, anyone can chime in on this. But you mentioned that many LGBTQ plus people, LGBTQIA to spirit people are homeless, along with women. That there's a high representation of women and the broad queer community homeless. Now, I think I know why women are probably homeless. Is that related a lot to the gender to the gender wage disparity gap? But yeah, enlighten us about that and why so many of our queer brothers and sisters are homeless as well, and non-binary folk as well.
Absolutely. I mean, like you said, there definitely is a disparity in wages that male identifying people receive and female identifying people receive. And that is going to impact queer people as well. The fact is, if you're a cis male in our society, then you're going to be favored in a lot of our systems, and that's going to disproportionately impact women, people of color, and queer people. So that definitely has an impact on homelessness. There is also a factor of that there's a lot of work to do in terms of fighting stigma against queer youth. There's a lot of, be they TERFs that you hear a lot about, trans exclusionary radical feminists, who refuse to accept queer people and their understanding of gender identity. And there's, a lot of hate against queer people and trans people in our society right now, and that means that a lot of families, they're forced to go out onto the streets and to fend for themselves, and we see that a lot at the integrated care hub. And it's just, not only do we need to make sure that, again, people, especially in vulnerable communities, are being protected, and that no matter what happens to them, they will have a safe place to return home every night. We need to do work culturally to fight back against the stigma and this bigotry and this homophobia and transphobia, and make sure that our systems view everybody as equal and treat everybody as equal, but on a one-to-one human level, that we're also doing the same there.
Keaton, how much does the legacy of Brian Mulroney play a part in all of this? Because I know he radically changed how welfare was done, how people get their unemployment benefits if they are, unemployed and whatnot. And I'm just curious, how much does his legacy of austerity, followed by Keaton, Paul Martin, Stephen Harper, how much has all of that played like an impact on the issues which is dear to all of you, to all of your hearts in wanting to push back? Because it sounds to me as if basically what all of you are proposing is on top of housing needs, needs to be a right. We need to also just stop the reign of terror that is austerity, shock doctrine, and whatnot.
I think in regards to those things and like legacy wise, it has its part in the overall philosophy of what we're doing, but I think it's something that you can arrive to on your own. Like I think it's like it's a human understanding. I don't think we're pushing anything that's really complicated or academic. I really think it's just, people are hurting and they need help in it. And it's not so much from a bleeding hearts perspective, like to go back to what you're saying to Ally about the competition. Yeah, I know you're being facetious, but
Yeah.
The competition doesn't necessarily have to end, but we need to start putting in perspective as a society what it is exactly the competition. People who believe in that kind of ideology where we're all responsible for ourselves, and if competition breeds healthier people, you're getting, when you put it on a world scale, you're getting into like low level eugenics at that point. Like, not everyone is bred to win, and that, even to go further than that, like, what are they winning? Like, it's a subjective norm, it's a subjective idea of what is to be done with the world. But I think we can all agree, like, I think human rights, UN, whatever example you want to look at, like, I think we've come to terms with what is a basic essential need for humanity. Social aspects aside, cultural differences aside, I think we know what people need, and we need to stop acting like it's a huge academic solve it all. Like we don't need to go down to universities and get our biggest whizzes on this, which we could. It's not hard. It's not like we aren't capable of doing that.
Yeah.
But we all know what the issues are. Like, we don't need to pretend like it's something that needs to have like a million different numbers and statistics. It's like, we know what's going on, man. People are dying. People are homeless. We can build houses. We've known how to do it for centuries, millennia. And we know how to do it, but it's the red tape, it's the bureaucracy shit. You know what I mean? We don't need that. We need to, there has to be an ability for people outside of this election, outside of whatever. There has to be an ability for people when we can realize when we've gone too far. Like, the way I've been talking to people about it is like, when we were kids, you're talking about competition, man. I'm like one of the most competitive people in the world. Like, it's not even a competition. But like,
yeah,
when we were kids, we would be playing like soccer or basketball or whatever, right? And I would always be with the intense people, the tryhards. I was like a gym hero, whatever, right? But it's like, it's just simple. Like, you understand it when you're a child. If your friend falls and cuts their leg, like, everyone's like talking down on the kid who like steps over him and keeps playing the game to win. You know what I mean? And it's just like, we talk about the shift from like capitalism to communism and whatever kind of isms, but it's like, at the end of the day, they're just ideas of organization. Like, we need to understand that we're bigger than the system as people, and we don't, like, nobody's working the government but like some dude who's working the government. Like, nobody's fixing your car except some dude who's fixing your car. Like, these aren't like godly people or people who are not relatable or understandable. Like, we're all just getting by, you know what I mean? And some of us are doing it better than others, and some of us have a better understanding of what will get you ahead in life right now. And you can go into like the reasons for that, and like education and like starting with low, like people who just aren't made to win from the beginning, if you want to put in that term, less fortunate, whatever. But it's like, yeah, like it's just an ideology. I think the reason like that it kind of has like a history is because it's just so self-evident when you really care to know and you care to be part of that. Like I don't think I don't know, man. Like money's great. Like I want a yacht. That stuff's cool, bro. Like it's great. And like there's people who could probably grind and really do the American dream thing. And like I get it. And I get people who are struggling who made it. And I understand all those perspectives. But it's like at the end of the day, I don't need people to earn their lack of suffering. Like I don't care
Yeah.
that I'm missing, like not, and that's not even to say people look at it as like a give or take, like I go without because they're getting more. That's not even how the system works, man. Like how often do you notice when people get welfare or things like that? You know what I mean? Like out of your own check, we all give a certain amount of money and then we go about our day. You know what I mean? Like how often do you hear people actually asking what taxes goes towards, unless it's some sort of like, I don't know, like political agenda situation where we all start bringing up, what's going on with money.
Yeah.
We genuinely care and we genuinely have like reasons for why we believe in what we believe in. But I'm just saying, like, the average person who's not politicized, like, that's just like stuff that is on the news one day for them. Like, they don't care about where their taxes are going or even have the time to look into that. So I think, like, it's just, we have a priority. We have a different priority, and I think it's the right priority. I think we are thinking about people overall and not so much a project or a plan or it's just like it's real life, man. It's just like it's not a game, it's not a competition. Like there will be time for the billionaires to become billionaires if they want, but it's like, why does everyone have to be homeless? Why would you want to live in a world where that's what you're successful in? Amongst that, I'd rather be an unsuccessful person in a world where no one's suffering, everyone has a house and everyone can eat, than a billionaire, but I know what it costs and the system I'm contributing to. Like you can't pretend that the system, where you stand politically, doesn't matter. You can't pretend that a capitalist society or a system where you make more money based on the same amount of work, but just, working it in a different way, using different labor, doing different things. You don't have to get into all that for it to be true. Like you don't have to believe it. It is true. That is how you get money, and that is how you make money, and it is how you get rich. You can sell your ideas and thoughts and
Exactly.
all that stuff. But so when you ask me that question, it's just like it's you don't need a lineage, like you don't need a lineage for math, man. It's like any human being who cares eventually will come upon it themselves and just start thinking that way. You know what I mean? Like it's just obvious, and people who say that there's not a way, and it's like we don't even know that yet. You know what I mean? Like we haven't even started the first step of caring enough to fail at that problem. You know what I mean? Like I could live with that in my generation. Like I could live with being the generation who really tried to end homelessness and all that, and it didn't work out because we just didn't see the AB. Like, you know what I mean? Like we didn't get it all right. But like we're not even at that part, man. We're just not even willing. Like, So I think priorities, man. I think our plan, our belief, like anyone who really cares would come upon it. I don't think we're special. I just think it's obvious, man.
Ooh,
Yeah.
so many truth bombs that you just dropped there. Jacob, is there is there any is there any topics that you think is being overlooked in this local election, which you would like to bring up, that you think that people also that you think people should be paying attention to, which you and your collective is going to address if you're also lucky to be elected?
For sure, yeah. Well, I mean, we've been harping on housing, and that's because it's obviously the keystone issue here. And I'll just touch on that quickly. The difference between us and them is we want social public rent geared to income housing, where everyone else wants affordable housing. The Canadian Mortgage and Housing Association defines affordable as 80% of the market rate, which is not affordable for the bulk of poor people and unhoused people. So that's number one, is true affordability means rent geared to income. Number two, the thing that I've been thinking about most myself that I haven't heard much of from any other candidate is building connections and ties between the city of Kingston government and the many Indigenous communities that surround our city. Everyone loves to, all the politicians in Kingston love to stand up on their soapbox and preach to the Indigenous community how much, we're going to be the ones that reconcile. And they love to dictate to the Indigenous community what reconciliation is going to be. You know what I mean? As if, great example being the incumbent councillor in my ward, Jeff McLaren, who likes to think that a middle-class white academic's interpretation of reconciliation is what the Indigenous community needs, in telling them that we need to put back up our statue of Johnny McDonald, right? Like, these are the kind of things we're seeing in Kingston.
Wait. Sorry to interrupt. That putting up a statue of John A. McDonald, that's the road to reconciliation?
And I'm quoting verbatim here. These were his words. I'm quoting verbatim. Reconciliation is not switching one dominator for another. Because apparently taking down a statue now makes Indigenous people the oppressor, according to him, according to a man with a PhD in political science. Somehow you go through a PhD in political science without one time thinking critically about the power dynamic that exists within our society, but I'll leave that for another time.
Okay,
so true reconciliation based on fact and based on not working over top of the Indigenous community, but allowing them to dictate to us what reconciliation will be. This has to be a cooperative effort with them at the helm, them leading, them telling us what to do. And in that vein, we've discussed as a council, we've discussed as a group, if we were brought in as a council, speaking to the surrounding communities about bringing in members of their communities and educators and opening up a museum that tells the true story of Canadian settler colonialism and the essential key role that Kingston played in carrying out the genocide, which is ongoing, which I know Ivan talked about in your guys' interview. I saw that.
Yeah.
So ongoing genocide, we need to open up an interview, or we need to open up a museum staffed by them where they can come in and educate us about what truly went on. From that point of accepting true history, then we can move to reconcile.
Perfect. Sebastian, is there any topics that you think are being criminally overlooked that if you were so lucky to be elected, you and your collective are going to address? And
Cool.
Go ahead and answer.
So I'll say I think I'll also have to get going after I give this answer. But I mean, we've kind of touched on a lot of the big things, so maybe I'll just kind of briefly put in that the city of Kingston has declared a climate emergency. And that's something that also informs a lot of our policy. When we talk about making sure we're housing everyone, what we're not talking about is removing green spaces to add more suburbs to the already sprawling suburbs that surround Kingston. Mm-hmm. We need to be making sure that when we're approaching housing and housing development, that we are making sure that it's done with an environmental lens applied to those projects, and making sure that everything we do is not harming the environment, but making sure that we're able to live alongside our environment here. We have a lot of protected wetlands around Kingston, and we need to make sure that those protected lands stay protected. I think that's kind of a main thing that I'll just kind of add in there. Add into
perfect, and then make sure to send me all of your campaign contact detail. You can send to Ivan. I'll make sure to post it in the YouTube links the moment this is uploaded. And best of luck in your campaign as well. So
absolutely, thank you so much for having us.
You're welcome. And
environmental. There's just to add to that for a moment. Like there's an environmental a bunch of environmentalist organizations invited all the candidates and to their rally to commit to reducing greenhouse emissions in Kingston by 50% by 2030, right? And I was the only mayoral candidate that showed up. So, you know, just like the rest of our opponents across the city and my opponents in mayoral race are committed to perpetuating homelessness by not committing to eliminating it like we do, they're also committed to continuing to destroy the environment. So, you know, that needs to be stated. But the main thing that we're going to do for the environment is we're going to expand the public transit, and we're going to make it free, and we're going to turn this town into a town where you can just get on the bus and get anywhere for free, instead of, you know, being a town that is built for pickup trucks and SUVs, and where you need to buy one of those things just to stay safe on the wild in the wild traffic jams, and people running around with stressed out and freaked out, you know, and so on. So sorry, just
And Ally, what would you say? What would you say to our right-wing liberal friends, our right-wing Tory friends, or even our many right-wing NDPers? There are a lot of right-wingers in the NDP party. What would you say to them when if you were to engage them in the conversation and say and you talk to them about the housing crisis? And you said to them that if we made that if we made housing like this, if we had a pharmacare like this, if we taxed the rich like this, if we had our welfare actually work like this, and on top of all the other things that I'm sure you're an advocate of, like merging mental health care with a single payer system, treating drug addiction as the mental health public issue that it should be a mental health and a medical matter, not a criminal justice issue. How what would you say to all of them if they were to say that, like, no, what we need to do is this, like you're being way too ambitious and all of these socialist policies you want to propose? How would you counter all of that? Because from listening to all of you talking just about the housing crisis alone, all those things are so interconnected, and so many of the injustices and problems that we have in society can all be solved, it seems, overnight if housing was a right, if we actually had a pharmacare system, if we actually had a single payer system that include mental health, your response to that.
Some people tell me that, like, that stuff is too much, like we don't need to give all these handouts, like there's other solutions. If the issues still exist, those aren't solutions. Like, everything that they've been doing clearly isn't working. And the people that keep coming up with all of the bad ideas just keep coming up with more bad ideas because they have no idea what it's like to experience these issues. They think that funding the food bank is going to solve everything, when in reality, people shouldn't even need to go there. Like, that should, like, people should not be hungry for food. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So they don't see it from our perspective because they've never been here. So when they think they have the solutions, they don't even understand the problem.
And anything you want to add that you think is overlooked, whether it's the Canadian media talking about this local election, when you do hear the other politicians in one-on-one interviews and whatnot talking about their talking about issues, what do you think is an issue that you think is being criminally overlooked that if you're all elected you would want to address?
Something that's really important to me, I'm not sure how criminally, like in my circle it's big, so I'm just not sure how big it is outside my circle. But if I was lucky enough to be part of like municipal council, municipal whatever, ODSP rates and those rates and the supports that we provide to people on those rates are like really important to me. So I would want to do whatever I can in my power to like.
ODS.
Is that the question?
Ontario Disability Program and Ontario Works, like these are welfare.
Oh, okay, interesting. Okay, yeah. Interesting.
So I'm not really sure if it's being overlooked, but I feel like that that in itself would also help solve a lot of the issues that the city is facing. So if the province or the federal government would just take responsibility for those issues, a lot of this stuff wouldn't fall on municipal government, but I mean, we're going to take care of it, whether it's us or them, but that's something that matters to me.
Jacob and Keaton, any other topics that you would like to address that any other topics that you would like to address?
Jacob, you can go ahead first.
Yeah, I want to make clear that I want to echo Ally that these from NDP to Conservative, it really doesn't matter. They pretend to have solutions because they don't understand the problem, and they're not willing to come and understand that problem, whether that be by knocking on the doors of poor people, going down to our barbecues that we throw at the integrated care hub and talking to unhoused people. They're unwilling to do that grassroots work. And I didn't know a ton about municipal politics before I started this process, but in engaging with it, one of the things that bothers me more than maybe any other rung of politics in Canada, provincial or federal, is that everybody acts like, I'm just a nice guy from the community, and I'm just going to try to help everybody, and the only people they end up trying to help are the middle class people in suburbs, or people who own more than one building, right? And if you're a hardworking person and you own your own home, I have no issue with you. That I'm glad that you're able to do that. But I mean, if we're only gearing our solutions towards those people who already own a home, and
who are lucky enough for whatever reason.
Yeah, and they are few and far between. But for those who have it, kudos to them. But I mean, we need to get back to a place in our society where we're looking out for, the people who are struggling the most. And again, like, we can't have a society where the bottom is broken out. We need to support those people at the bottom the most, and then we can, grow to be like the equitable society that Canada likes to think they are, that they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Keaton.
Yeah, I think it's kind of in the vein that Jacob was going off on. Like, I think people have a misunderstanding when it comes to politics in general and like what politicians' responsibilities are. Like, I think it's rare they have someone like Ivan who's actually like researched everything that he's planning to implement. A lot of these things that are going to happen in government, and why, like Jacob said, people just come through and like they lie and they just tell you what you want to hear until they get elected, and then you never hear from them. And a lot of people are disillusioned by government because of those exact things. But I think what people need to understand is that we're not necessarily coming in saying, oh, we have the answers. We didn't just, like, God didn't just whisper in my ear and be like, yo, this is how you end homelessness. I mean, like, it's going to be a lot of work, and it's going to be a lot of effort and a lot of planning. But the idea is that we as people, that's our priority. Whereas these other people who are running for elections and want to be whatever, that's they're kind of just giving you what you want to hear again. Like, they don't have the intentions behind it. So it's preferable because we may not have the best plan. We might have the best plan, but we are open to working with other people and hearing better strategies to implement the change that we want to see. At the end of the day, you want a politician who's going to advocate for what they said they're going to advocate for. And a lot of people see it as like a deterrent because, oh, you didn't have the answers. Joe Biden doesn't decide military strategy like day by day basis. You know what I mean? Like, people that are making these decisions, they're making the overall decision and they're making the overall direction. But I don't think that they can be expected to have all the answers. And I think that's like the big problem that we have in politics in general, is that we aren't holding people accountable to their ideals. We're holding them accountable to like the plan, which, that's also important. But I think, better plans can be made by people who have put their whole lives into figuring out an issue. We just need someone to be elected who is going to give them the resources they need to implement those things and greenlight them, So yeah, I think when it comes to politics, yeah.
Exactly. And before we close, Ivan, anything that we didn't talk about the last time we talked that you want to address before we come to a close?
I can't remember everything and anything that we covered, but like, just I'm inspired by what Ally, Jacob, and Keaton just said, just to kind of reiterate my overall point, which is that the government wants us to stay away from the government business. Government wants us, like, especially municipal government, the whole thing is geared towards repelling people. They want you to feel small. They want us to feel uneducated, unexperienced. That's that, like, pretty much the only issue that you will see in the literature of our opponents is they'll talk about their experience. I have experience, I have leadership, I have integrity, I have, sometimes they'll brag about education. We have education here, so, just as much as they, and especially in our organization, like the most educated people in our organization are not even running in this election. It's not about education. It's not about your experience. Experience in politics is a bad thing, because those people that that have political experience are the people who created the homelessness, are the people who forced the first food bank to open in 1984, and are the people who are the reason why the food bank is growing by 20% annually. You know what I mean? The people who are running this town are their experience is the experience of opioid deaths, that are happening daily, that we don't even know about. We're finding people months after they've hidden in the bushes. So, if we don't have to win, but like the fact that the six of us stepped up and said, we can do politics, and we insist that nobody die, and we insist that nobody be homeless by the end of this year, that nobody this winter is sleeping outside. That's a huge victory in itself, and I really hope that I know that what this is going to do is inspire young people like Ally, like Keaton, that's going to inspire them to basically do it more. And we're already seeing this. We're going door to door, and people are talking our language. They heard it. It's in the air. Like this is a movement that is not going to stop. And if there are people from other towns watching this, my message to you is, maybe you missed the boat this time, but next time you do it. It's just a few months. It's 2 months. You keep doing. There's a lot of people on the left. They're like, oh, screw electoral politics, bourgeois politics, blah blah blah. No, okay, don't do bourgeois politics. Don't show up once every 4 years. Put an orange on your pamphlet and have subtitles: integrity, experience, and education. No, don't do that. That's bourgeois politics. Do what we do: feed the people, watch the government, organize rallies, support people, encamp and support, bring them wood, build their houses, protect their houses, tell them how to fight their landlords, physically and in court, in every way, every day, cook soup every day. And then when it's election, for that month or two, go door to door and tell people what you've done and what you want to do. And tell people that it's not okay to have homelessness, that it's completely unacceptable to have homelessness, that somebody be hungry. There is no excuse for any child in the world to go hungry. There's no excuse for any human, old, young, or in the middle, black, white, queer, whatever, to be on the street, to be hungry, or to not have a roof over their head. And that's the minimum. And that's the minimum. It's completely unacceptable. And we're not crazy. They are crazy. You are crazy if you're going to sit there and obfuscate and talk about integrity and experience instead of openly admitting, like everyone else, like we do, that the goals are simple: eliminate homelessness, feed the people. That's it.
Wow, could not have said it better myself. Before we close, Keaton, anything? So before I close the conversation, we'll do this. Keaton, anything that you, any last messages you want to say? Followed by Jacob, followed by Ivan, and then Ally. And then Ally. Also, anything that you say anything that you'd like to say, and so we'll start with Keaton, then Jacob, Ivan, and Ally.
Yeah, I don't have much to say. I think come out and vote this month, and I think. Oh
yes, remind people and remind people when the voting is.
yeah, October 24th. Yeah, and
on the 5th we can
start
tomorrow. We can start voting online. People should register. It's easy to register online. We'll put stuff in the link.
Perfect.
But tomorrow you can start voting online. Sorry.
Yeah, no, and I think like what Ivan said, don't be deterred by the numbers or the organization or anything like that. Like make your voice heard and let people know that you also want to change.
Jacob?
I want to call on a quote quick from Che Guevara, and he once said, "The life of a single human being is worth more than all the property of the richest man on earth." And keeping that
Fantastic.
spirit alive is what we need to do. And whether we win or not on the 24th, we will keep the ball rolling. We'll keep providing material support to those who need it. And we will keep proving that there is an alternative to the system we have now. And we'll keep fighting. And that's what everyone else should do too.
Ivan, second to last person. Anything else you want to add to that wonderful speech that wonderful rallying cry to people power folk?
No, it's like just there's an urgency to this, like we have to win. This avalanche of oppression which is coming. You know what I mean? Like the housing crisis is daily becoming worse. Like we are all threatened. Like Ali mentioned, correct. I have so many friends. Our friends are homeless. Our friends are dangerously close. We are dangerously close to being homeless, and we're not. I mean, we're different people, but like we're not special. It doesn't take being special. It doesn't take being a heroin addict to be homeless today. Regular people, like you're late for work once or twice. You get drunk once. You I don't know. You lose money because you're stressed on your way home from the bank, and you're facing homelessness. People are literally, paycheck away, and it's critical. And we know here who we're running against. The mayor is going for the third term. He's been ruling for 8 years. Jeff McLaren, the Jacob is like, these people have been in power. They're committed to continuing this. They're doubling down. They're like, more supply, money to the landlords, affordable housing, blah, blah, blah. They're committed. And they're like, we have to encourage business. We have to encourage tourism. We didn't even talk about that. It's a tourist town. Ali talked about this. Like, let's put the money in the pockets of Kingstonians who are on the street, who are working at Tim Hortons and who are barely surviving, whose kids are going hungry. Let's put some money into those pockets. Let's give them free, rides. Let's give them rent geared to income so they can be the tourists. We don't want tourists here. Tourism industry is not good for anybody. If you look at, tourism industry worldwide, the poorest places in the world are tourist industry. And what our tourist industry is? It's heritage, it's racism, it's celebrating Sir John A. It's showing people where Sir John A lived, where Sir John A had his office and so on. So,
And the penitentiary.
Yeah. And the penitentiaries, they're making look and sound like they're Disneyland, which are where they keep people of color, the minorities, the poor. That's the thing. That's the fact of life in Canada. The prisons are full of poor people. Prisons are full of homeless people. Prisons are full of indigenous people. That's who goes to prison in our country. That's who's in prison constantly. Never a rich person in prison. You will never find one of the oligarchs in prison. Meanwhile, they are the real criminals. They're the real criminals. They're making the backdoor deals. They're the ones that are causing, that are killing people, because policy kills people. If your policy is to give taxpayers money to some big developer or a landlord, millionaire, so that he can create housing that creates inflated rents and real estate prices that pushes people out onto the street, and then they freeze in the winter. What's that by murder? Social murder. Engels talked to that's Engels' idea. So social murder by bad policy, right? The housing question by Engels. Everybody should read that. So I could go on forever, but there's no time here. Like we know what the current politicians are going to do. They're going to kill people. They're going to cause mass death and suffering, and who knows if we'll be here if we'll have the internet. If these people you talk to right now are going to be alive 4 years from now, because literally, that's why we're fighting. That's what we're doing. What we're doing is we're trying to stop the genocide, which is ongoing, and which has always gone way beyond the identity group that is in question. There's ethnic cleansing in Serbia, there's ethnic cleansing in Russia, there's ethnic cleansing in North America. But the bottom line is poor people are getting cleansed everywhere, all the time. And the workers are getting worked to death. That's what Auschwitz was. It was a work camp where people were getting worked to death so that some industrialist, white supremacist pig can outcompete some other white supremacist pig from another country. Like that's what Auschwitz was. And that's what's going on here. They're working us to death, and the people on the streets they're working harder than anybody else. Seb and I made a documentary, which you might want to link as well. Wonderful. We interviewed, people that we were supporting. They were building their own homes, and they were trying to live outside without, and that's, Ben and Nikki are their names, and Nikki, went on a wonderful rant that everybody should hear, and she was basically saying, dude, man, nobody works harder than us. We wake up and we fight for every meal every day. For we we chop wood. we're living, we're working all day long, and nobody works as hard. And that's the thing. That's what's ultimately killing people, is because they're getting chased away from place to place. They're getting persecuted. They're getting persecuted on daily. And that's the one thing that we didn't mention. I mean, we have a protocol. Like, it is illegal in this town. This administration has made it illegal for people to live outside. So if you pitch a tent outside in Kingston, within 48 hours, if you're discovered by the police or the bylaw, you have to move. So people are not allowed to stay in one place for it's amazing. It's amazing, and it's brutal, and it's genocidal, and it's crazy that you know what I mean, that what they will come up with because of tourism partly. So their solution, this municipal government solution to the fact that tourists are like, hell, I don't want to go to Kingston, it's a ghetto, there are poor people, there are homeless people everywhere, right? It looks like shit, I feel like shit, Their solution to that is to have these kinds of protocols which are chasing people away, and they're hoping that they can somehow push them out of sight instead of housing them. You know what I mean? So that's what we're dealing with, and they're going to continue to do this. This is going to be their solution: push people further into the woods, ban them, destroy their lives, kill them, ultimately kill them. They think that they can resolve homelessness by eliminating the homeless, by pushing them far enough so that they don't, But the problem is that it comes in waves. So what's really happening is, yes, they're managing to kill people. People are dying. People are resorting to opioids. People are hiding deeper and deeper in the bushes. But people like us who are here housed right now talking to you are not going to be able to make rent because the landlord's going to get greedy and lie about wanting to move in here, and we're going to be too weak to react, or maybe we won't call our local tenant union and fight them, and then we're going to be on the street, and it's going to take another 6 months for us to get from the shelter system into the woods, and from the woods onto fentanyl, and from fentanyl to be found 6 months after we die, somewhere deep in the woods. So it's a system, it's a systemic genocide that's being carried out, and we're trying to stop it. We're trying to, that's what I've done my whole life, just trying to stop the genocide from happening. And it's hard to measure whether we're winning, but I mean, I feel that, like, I don't want to be too depressive here, but we are forcing them to do things. ICH wouldn't exist without us, organizing, with unhoused people and making a fuss about it. Some of the shelters that exist, their solution is shelter at best. Their first solution is just, ban homelessness, break, tear down people's tents, send them, but when they encounter resistance, then they're like, oh, we're opening a shelter. Shelter is not a solution. Tiny homes, which are tool sheds basically, which are not tiny homes. These are not solutions. These are pretend solutions. This is a joke. You know what I mean? This is not gonna save anybody for any amount of time. This is like institutionalizing misery, institutionalizing second-grade citizenship. You know what I mean? Normal people get to, there's citizens get to live in houses, and then we have second-grade citizens who can get to live in tool sheds and in shelters, and they can go at each other and live. They can all sleep in the same room, 50 people.
Ally, anything you want? Ally, is there anything you want to add to? Yes, yeah. Anything you want to add? Anything you want to add before we close?
I think I speak for all of us when I say that, like, the people that are currently making the decisions, they're really just thinking about themselves and their small circle. But we care about the city and the people that live in the city as a whole. Like, we speak for the people that are being forgotten about and have never been represented, and that's who we're bringing to the table.
Perfect. Before we close, Keaton, just remind people, just remind people what you're running for in this election.
So I'm running for City Council in District 7, Rideau Heights, Kingscourt.
Jacob, and you're running in.
I'm in Ward 8, Meadowbrook-Strathcona, also running for councillor.
Ivan, we know you're running for mayor of Kingston, Ontario, and Ally, you're running for.
On the ballot, I'm Alexandra Liu, and I'm running in District 11, the Kingstown district.
And can you remind people the organization that the collective that you're all part of?
The Katarokwi Union of Tenants.
Yes, Ivan.
It's a Mohawk word, right? Katarokwi for this area. It's spelled many different ways, but the way we spell it and we feel like it's authentic is KATARAKWI. Is that right?
Go ahead, Jacob.
KATAROKWI.
Union of Tenants.
And don't worry, I actually have it on my favorites, so I'll make sure to link it. Alrighty, folks. That's I think
People's
yes.
Platform for Kingston, like the platform that we're running on, set of policies that we're going to institute. It's called People's Platform for Kingston. So the website is tenantsunite.ca. People's Platform for Kingston.
I put the website, the Instagram, and the Facebook in our Zoom chat.
Yes, and perfect, and I'll make sure to link to all of that. All right, folks. I think that's a great place to end. Well, I wish you all the best of luck in your campaigns, and I know so October 24th. That's election day, right? But
Yes.
So October 24th is election day, but people can vote for whoever for whoever is their local representatives, and I strongly recommend that they vote you all in. But on October 17th, there's going to be a debate, Ivan, that you're going to be participating in, or what?
I think it's the 18th. Yeah, 18th is the I think 18th, 7 o'clock. There's going to be a mayoral debate, and the current mayor is too afraid to show up. So it's going to be more of me for all your wonderful listeners. There's going to be more me and two other candidates who are running, but the incumbent mayor is not going to show up.
I know I know my second largest audience is Canadian. So Canadians who are watching this, you have to show up and watch and come to this debate, even if you're not from Kingston, Ontario, and do support all of these candidates, which we're going to link to all of them. All righty. I wish you all the best of luck in your campaigns. Let's all stay in touch, and I really hope that all goes well. And power to the people, death to the power to the people, death to the plutocracy, right?
Oh yeah.
All righty.
Thanks for having us.
Ciao,
Thank you, Youri.
ciao until then, and wish you all the best of luck. And Ally, I really hope that all goes well with your daughter's father, and I really hope all goes well with that situation.
so much.
You have my deepest prayers and my deepest prayers, and really hope that all goes well.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.